So we're in New York City, we're at Guernsey's auction house. We are standing with the owner of the company, Arlen Ettinger, and he is actually preparing to auction off the 5,500-piece collection of the Titanic. I don't mean the movie, I mean the ship. Let's talk a little bit about this collection.
About a year ago, a court finalized its decision about the proper owner of this collection, which is indeed the public company that has carefully overseen the recovery effort, and they felt that now, after a quarter century, the time is right to for them to move on and to give a new owner a crack at this phenomenal collection. The big piece is a section of the hull that measures about 20 feet tall by about 40 feet wide. Rivets, portholes and all, about an inch, 3/4 of an inch thick steel. You have to realize the forces that must have come into play on that occasion to rip open this thing like a tin can. Extraordinary, and that gave me goosebumps for sure. There have been many pieces of jewelry discovered. One that we had a while back in our hands was a very dainty, very beautiful little bracelet that spelled out the name Amy in diamonds.
And now you're hoping to auction this collection to one bidder, is that correct?
The court, in its wisdom, thought that for the sake of historic preservation, so that my children and their children would always have access to some part of the Titanic, the collections being sold together with certain provisions set forth by the court called covenants that the owner has to agree to, most notably that the owner agrees to keep the collection together and to display it somewhere in the world, at least partially. So it wasn't so much our call, but I think it's the right thing to do. The judge ordered an appraisal, and careful to make sure that they hired the finest appraisers in the land. This appraisal team ended up spending enormous length of time to seriously approach this collection. What could it possibly be worth? So the appraisal team came up with a nice round number, $189 million.
Wow.
And that didn't include most of the intellectual property, which some feel to be as valuable as the artifacts. Without a precedent to point to, it just becomes educated guesswork. You know, we could be standing in front of a Picasso painting that could be worth $50 million, but still easy to appraise because hundreds of Picassos have been sold in the past to compare it to. Some have said 189, gee, that's an awful lot. Others have said, well, gee, that sort of makes sense. Could even be cheap. So we'll see.